And now I'm going to add the pieces of fabric for the wax experiment. So the pieces of fabric for that were the piece of 100% beeswax right here. So I'm gonna add that guy in and leave it in there for about 15 minutes since that's the usual amount of time that it takes for batik to set. So we're gonna drop that in there. You can kind of see the outline right there, which is pretty cool. Next, I'm gonna drop in the 50% beeswax and 50% paraffin piece, which is this guy. Drop that in there. And then last but not least, I'm gonna drop in the 100% paraffin wax one right here. And then drop it in like that. And so in total, I'm just gonna mix this in here. I just gotta wait a little bit of time before I can start digging these guys out and figuring out how they turn out. So I'll go through and do that. And then we got the last piece right here, which is either the beeswax or the paraffin wax. It'll be a little bit easier to identify a little bit later on. As you can see, this one kind of survived. This one actually had a little bit more luck. Has a bit of a more white hue to it, so I'm suspecting this is the paraffin sheet. So once again, I guess I'll find out once it dries out a bit more. That's kind of insane. None of the other ones show up like that at all. That's pretty gorgeous. I'm happy for that. That's great. Right here, I believe we have a piece. I'm not exactly which one this is, but I believe it's either the beeswax, the paraffin wax, or the mix of the two. So I'll take that out. And this guy, I believe, is my design. You can kind of see some of the white spots where the wax is. So I'll take this out. This one's another one with, as you can see, there's some wax still on it. So I'll take this guy out. Right, oh wow, there you go, still showing up. All right, and so this one I believe is either the paraffin wax, the beeswax, or the mix. So I'll take that out. And then mix it with one more piece, I believe. Ooh, that is still very hot. Don't do this at home, kids. All right, and I think this is the last piece of the individual, what is this guy? No, I think it's just this guy. It smells like laundry detergent. That's definitely the most present smell in here. So a lot of these small pieces do have like the residual wax on them. You can see it on my gloves. Definitely came off of some of the pieces. I'm curious to see which ones it ends up having come off of. So as you can see, like these both kind of look like they were covered in wax originally. Not exactly sure how that happened, but I'm excited to find out why. Yeah, because this is definitely too small. All right. One last to see through. Looks like this. No. Not this one. I would think I could have done a better job at the sizing on these. On this clothing line, I have all of the pieces of fabric that had dye on it, or had wax on it. So that includes the one of my design, the 3 with 100% beeswax, 100% paraffin, and 50/50. So up next after this, now that these guys are nice and dry, and have dried overnight, I'm going to boil them in water to get rid of the wax in order to see what the final results look like. Okay, so to finish up this wax segment, so now that the pieces have been dried, this is kind of what they look like. So this is the beeswax piece. I know this just because it is a more flexible piece of wax, and I knew that it would hold up the best in the heat. So this is this one. And then right here, I know this one is, or actually this guy, I know that this one is the paraffin and beeswax mix, only because you can kind of still see the big thin lines over here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but on this side right here, there's some thinner lines. So that's how you know that it's the 50% beeswax and paraffin, which leaves just the paraffin mix. This one's a little bit harder to tell just because it's so vague, but we'll find out how it turns out. Okay, so first up, I'm gonna fire in the paraffin sheet. So I'm just gonna fire this in here. And so I'm just gonna use a plastic fork to poke this down, just so that it gets fully submerged in the water. Now, previous to this video, I had done my video for just walking through the process of practicing batik. And so the water's already pretty blue, but I'll show you guys in this one as well, that it is like a deep, deep indigo color. So as the wax is coming out, some of the dye comes out as well. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see the colors be lifted. So for my first video, I did a piece that was larger, and I kept it in there for a little bit longer because there was more wax on it. And then I had a smaller one that I had drawn a design on just to kind of see what it would look like, and only submerged it for about half the amount of time. And their two colors, even to my eye right now, are completely different. So it's amazing how much, like, if for such little time of being in hot water, it can change its attributes a great deal. All right. Let's keep this guy going here for a little bit longer. Just want to make sure I want to get rid of all the wax. So the heat should help. Sorry, I thought I said this in the last video, so this is why I'm getting a little mixed up. But the reason why I boil it in water after dyeing it is to get rid of the wax. Now, traditionally, you can scrape it off, but more normally what they use is just boiling the water and putting the fabric in it, because by heating up wax, it tends to melt out of the fabric and remove itself. And then you can take it out and then actually collect all the wax at the end once the water cools. So it's actually a very sustainable practice. So when you take out the fabric, all of the wax should be out and just mixed in with the water. And then once the water cools, there should be a layer of wax that forms on top. I'll keep you in tune if that actually ends up happening. That's my hypothesis. But yeah, so I think this is just about done. It should just be heated up enough just for the wax to loosen and remove itself from the piece of fabric. And I'm just using this plastic fork because I don't want to ruin any more of my kitchenware, because I gotta toss this pot. And then fire it over here. And then down on the floor down here, I just have some brown bags on the floor just to keep from staining the linoleum floor, because that would be a bummer. All right, and now we're gonna go in with the 50% paraffin, 50% beeswax. Throw that in there. Mix that around. Make sure it's submerged, because you want to make sure you get both sides of the fabric, because the wax does seep through the fabric usually, so you want to make sure you get both sides. So separate this out and mix up again. Flat. Alright. Probably should have worn gloves for this. Here we are. It's what we're doing today. It's been a long day already. It's only 3 p.m. Right, this guy likes to stay submerged, which is nice for me. What else can I tell you guys about? Yeah, so after this step, I'm going to hang these all out on the clothesline, just to let them air dry again. I don't want them laying down to let any more of the dye seep out. But hopefully at which point I'll be able to show you the final result of what they turn out and see if it holds true that the dyes actually seep more into where the beeswax lines were than paraffin, but paraffin will have more cracks through it to kind of see what the difference is between the two in that regard. But I'm kind of excited. And then hopefully the 50%, or the 50% beeswax and 50% paraffin wax turns out okay. I did notice some of it did come off during the dyeing process, just because the water was hot. So that could be a contributing factor, which is why usually artisans only want to dye their fabric for about 15 minutes, because if you leave it in there for longer, the integrity of the wax is compromised and you end up losing some of the wax, and it kind of defeats the entire purpose of the practice, is when dye gets where you don't want it to go. So right now I'm boiling it out. It might have been my fault with the way that I mixed the wax. You'll learn some. You learn something new every day. It's my first time doing it, so I'm sure that with practice I'll be able to come up with a recipe that actually works a little bit more effectively. Hopefully it does a good enough job of showing you guys kind of what the difference looks like, but we will find out. So here's this. This one has been in here plenty long, so I'm gonna take this out. Let that drip dry, and you can kind of see the blue water coming off of it. It definitely is losing some of its color, which definitely makes sense once again for it being in hot water. All right, and last but not least, we're gonna throw in the 100% beeswax sheet, which is this guy. So I'm kind of excited to see what it looks like without any of the wax on it, so. Right. I'm a little bit concerned that since it's all blue water in here now, it might tint the white lines. That would be really nice to see and turn them into like a light blue. I don't think it'll tint them enough that they will be indistinguishable. So worst case, it'll be a little bit light blue lines on top of darker blue fabric. I honestly kind of see that happening. I think typically you change out the water or you have it as like running water. Just this is what my methodology is, so we shall see. And I'm just, once again, just pushing it down, make sure it stays submerged so that all the wax on both sides can get out and released back into the water. So just looking down at the other pieces that I've done previously, the colors are definitely changing slowly but surely as they seep back into the bag. The one that I had there for the shortest amount of time is still the darkest, so that definitely makes a lot of sense. This one still had a lot of wax on it, so I want to make sure I give it enough time. Interesting. So right now there's kind of a yellow hue forming around the edges of the pot. I'm wondering if it's either from the dye or if it's actually from the yellow beeswax, because this is the beeswax one and it definitely is very, very yellow in color. So that's actually kind of interesting to look at. I can show you guys once I get this guy out. I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, but if you look in here, yeah, it's a little bit tough, but there's yellow ring along the outside of it, which I believe is coming from the beeswax. All right, so it looks like I got the majority of it off, which I think will do just fine for our purposes. Right, pull this guy out. And once again, you can kind of see the deep blue color coming off of it. Ah, shoot. Just have a white towel right next to me and I prefer not to stain it. And, all right. Beautiful. All right, so those are all in there. Turn this off the heat. I got a lot of dye to dump today. But yeah, so I will show you the final results in the next part of this video. So in the previous video with the boiling, I said that I thought that all the wax would kind of rise to the top, and you can kind of see that that came true. You can kind of see the buildup of beeswax around the edges and just some floating wax on the top. And then I had to reheat this wax to get it out, and so I put some water on it, and the water sank all the way to the bottom and the wax flows to the top, and so now I can just flip it out without having to clean my entire pan, which is awesome news because I didn't want to do it. All right, to do one last video about the types of waxes and how they're affected on fabric. Right here we have the 100% paraffin wax. As you can see, not a whole lot that's stuck. You can still see some vague outlines of things, a few deeper spots, but really nothing notable. You can see the 100% paraffin wax. So it didn't turn out great. Then over here, we have the 100% beeswax. As you can see, very easily concealed. And these white spots around it, I think, are from boiling it in the hot water with the other fabrics, because other melted wax may have adhered to it. Hence kind of like the random patterns, but focusing more on the lines. These lines are still very, you can see them super clearly. They look great, but the issue is, and like I mentioned in my wax presentation, wax or beeswax is really difficult to get out of fabric. And so you can still kind of feel it on the fabric. You know that it's still in there. It's still gonna be resisting dye. So if there were for any reason that you wanted to re-dye this piece, you really couldn't over these lines specifically, because you can't get the wax out. I boiled this for a few minutes and still nothing came out, or not all of it came out. So definitely something to be wary about, but definitely the reason why this type of wax is predominant in most wax recipes. And then right here, we have the 50% paraffin, 50% beeswax. It turned out okay. You can still vaguely see the like smaller outlines. You can definitely see the brush stroke still. And I think that might be something that's my fault. I should have used more beeswax and less paraffin wax, and hopefully would have gotten more of a result like the beeswax. But honestly, I think all in all, it does kind of prove what I had hoped. The paraffin wax clearly really didn't come out that great. But this one kind of shows through that this one does have the least amount of wax on it still, but still has the most white behind it still. This guy is just covered in wax. Like I can feel it underneath my finger. So I think definitely a combo of the two. I'm still learning how to do it, so I think I definitely would change up my recipe for this guy, but I think this is clearly the way to go, because it's kind of a mix between this and this. So definitely the ideal situation.